Corinne Bell was holding my hand when she told me my husband was cheating. And the worst part was how gently she said it. We were parked outside the hotel where I worked. Snow turning gray. Her thumb moving over my knuckles. "Bennett has been acting wrong. Lydia," she murmured, "and I think you already know it." What I did not know was that my best friend was not helping me find the other woman. She was teaching me to look everywhere except at her. In Minneapolis, people like us learned to keep bad news polished. Bennett Ward ran membership at a private athletic club where men smiled with coats over their arms and women remembered who got invited upstairs. I managed guest relations at a boutique hotel near North Loop, where a late checkout could mean a hangover, a secret, or a marriage getting quieter. Corinne coordinated private dining at a restaurant where important people expected discretion with wine. She knew how to lower her voice until a lie sounded like care. That night started at our dining table with Bennett, Corinne, and Graham passing takeout containers while pretending adulthood was simple. Bennett's phone lit up beside his glass, only a C showing before his hand covered it. He trapped it under his palm so fast the silverware jumped, then smiled like the sound had been funny. Corinne glanced at me first, not at him, and said private dining clients get needy after 9. Like she had prepared the answer. I laughed because everyone else did, but the laugh stopped before it reached my throat. Bennett kept his phone in his lap after that, and Corinne kept the conversation moving whenever my eyes drifted toward him. Graham asked if everything was okay, and Bennett said, "Just club drama. Nothing worth ruining dinner over." Corinne touched my wrist and whispered, "Don't start worrying before you have a reason." I remember that touch because it felt kind. And later, it became what I replayed when kindness started looking like cover. Bennett did not change all at once, which made every change easier to forgive. He came home with his scarf, carrying a soft amber scent that did not belong to our bathroom shelf, then kissed my cheek, like timing explained everything. He changed his passcode and called it club security, because members trusted him with private schedules. He started showering before dinner, and every reason arrived polished enough to sit beside the last one. I told Corinne because I still believed she was the safest room in my life. She showed up with soup from her restaurant, kicked off her boots, and sat on my rug like we were 22 again. "Maybe you're tired." Lid. "Maybe he's tired," she murmured. "And maybe a good marriage gets weird before it gets honest." I wanted to believe that because her voice made panic feel dramatic. Then she gave the worry a name without ever sounding like she meant to. Shelby was a divorced member at Bennett's club. Pretty in that expensive, quiet way. The kind of woman who knew which trainer had a wait list. Corinne mentioned Shelby ate alone at her restaurant, asked about Bennett's schedule, and wore something amber that lingered after she left. She never accused Shelby outright, which made it worse, because she let me do the accusing inside my own head. At the hotel, Dana Pike caught me staring at the lobby doors after a late shift. She was the assistant night manager, careful because guest privacy was not a suggestion in our business. Still, while sorting key cards, she said Bennett came through Thursday for a drink with a woman in a red hat. He told me he was in St. Person. Paul, that night. I answered too quickly, and Dana's face went still enough to feel like confirmation. Corinne had a red hat, but my mind rejected the thought. Best friends remembered your mother's birthday and did not sit beside you while hiding inside your marriage. So I stayed with Shelby because Shelby made sense from a distance. Corinne kept calling, asking if I had eaten, telling me not to let suspicion make me someone I wasn't. Bennett chose the anniversary restaurant, which should have felt thoughtful until I realized he moved through it like a man returning somewhere familiar. He ordered before I opened the menu, chose wine I never liked, and checked entrance while pretending to read specials. When the server asked if we wanted the window table again, Bennett's jaw tightened. "Again?" I asked, and he laughed too quickly, saying club dinners blurred together. The server flushed and corrected himself. but the damage had landed. I had never sat at that window table with my husband, and Bennett knew it because he would not meet my eyes. He cut his steak into pieces too small for a man who claimed he was relaxed, then reached for his phone when it buzzed. "Just work," he muttered, and I watched his thumb turn the screen dark before I could see the name. Corinne texted before dessert, asking if our anniversary dinner was better than I feared. I had not told her where we were, only that Bennett wanted to take me out. When I mentioned the window table, she answered fast. "Maybe he's trying to rebuild something familiar with you. Lid, don't punish him for a waiter's mistake." The advice sounded calm, almost loving, but it arrived with too much knowledge. That night, I opened a plain notebook from the hotel supply drawer and wrote like I was filing an incident report. Restaurant. Window table. Server recognized him. Corinne knew timing. Bennett hid phone. I did not write feelings first, because feelings could be challenged. Softened. Talked around until they looked unreasonable. Facts stayed where I put them. I met Graham Ellis after a claims meeting at the hotel. When he stayed behind to return a visitor badge, I asked if repeated personal charges on a shared card mattered when a marriage was already tense. He studied my face and said patterns matter more than panic. "Lydia, but only if you keep what you are legally allowed to keep." For the first time, suspicion stopped feeling like fog and started looking like a file. The valet charge showed up on our shared card 2 days after Bennett claimed he had spent the evening at a member dinner across town. It came from a hotel near Corinne's restaurant. The kind of place people used when they wanted privacy without driving far. When I asked him about it, Bennett did not look annoyed or guilty, only prepared. "I helped an older member get home after dinner," he answered. But when I asked her name, he gave me her title instead. That was the first time his lie sounded less like panic and more like habit. In hospitality, people who tell the truth usually give you a person, a place, a small, useless detail that proves they were there. Bennett gave me polished fog, and I wrote it down beside the charge. The date, and the hotel name. I did not touch his phone, did not guess passwords, did not turn my home into some ugly trap. I kept what already belonged to me and let the pattern breathe. Corinne called that night while I was still at the kitchen table with the statement open. Her voice came soft through the speaker, asking if I had eaten, asking if Bennett was being kinder, asking questions that circled the truth without ever landing on it. I almost told her about the valet charge, then stopped because I heard how ready she sounded. "Maybe don't confront him yet, Lid," she murmured, "because if Shelby really is involved, he'll just deny it and get better at hiding." She had made Shelby useful again before I even said Shelby's name. The next morning, Graham gave me the name of an attorney who handled quiet consultations. Not drama, not threats, just rules. Through that office, I hired a licensed investigator who understood what could be documented and what could not. Corinne had offered me a name from her restaurant circle, but I let that offer sit untouched, like food gone cold on a counter. Something in the way she pushed me toward her person made my stomach tighten harder than the bill itself. A week later, the first update came back, clean enough to hurt. Bennett was not meeting Shelby, and Shelby was not the woman leaving through the side entrance near Corinne's restaurant. The photos were distant, but the navy coat, red knit hat, and silver bracelet narrowed the room inside my chest. I had bought that bracelet for Corinne when she got promoted. I did not confront Corinne with the bracelet, because a friend who could steer me toward Shelby would not fold over one photo. I invited her over the next evening, made tea, and let the house stay quiet enough for her to fill it. "I think it might be Shelby," I said, watching her fingers close around the mug. Corinne looked almost relieved before concern settled over her face, and that tiny delay told me more than comfort ever had. "Don't go to the club, Lid," she murmured, "because if you make a scene, Bennett will use it against you." She kept her voice low, like she was protecting me, but her eyes stayed too steady. I looked at her wrist while she talked about patience and timing. The silver bracelet was gone, and the missing thing was louder than anything she said. After she left, I opened the box where I kept old photos, cards, and proof that people had once been easy to love. There was a picture from Corinne's promotion dinner, both of us under restaurant lights, the bracelet bright on her wrist. I set it beside the investigator's photo. Navy coat, red hat, same thin silver circle catching light near Bennett's sleeve. I did not need a confession when the past and present were staring at each other from my kitchen table. I called Graham before I could talk myself out of it. I asked whether Corinne had been out on the same nights Bennett claimed club events ran late, and he went quiet before answering. She has had more private dining emergencies lately, he said. Not proof, but not nothing. I sent him the timestamps, the valet charge, the bracelet photo, and the investigator image with the face unclear. Graham did not call her names or ask me to swear I was sure. He only said he would check his calendar. And his tight voice told me he had been near the same door. By morning, he had found 3 nights where Corinne's emergencies did not appear on the restaurant schedule she once showed him. 2 matched Bennett's late club nights, and the 3rd matched the hotel valet charge. Bennett and Corinne did not plan to confess. They planned to be discovered in a way that made the rest of us look late, suspicious, and unreasonable. I learned that from one sentence that flashed across the screen in our car when Bennett handed me the keys after dinner. Tonight has to look accidental, it read, and he turned the phone face down. I did not touch the phone or pretend I had not seen it. I carried the groceries inside, put milk away, and wrote the sentence in my notebook with the time beside it. Then I sent my attorney a careful message. Not emotional. Just enough to say Bennett might be creating a situation before separation papers were discussed. The reply came back simple. Document only what you lawfully see, and do not walk into any room alone. 2 nights later, Bennett asked me to meet him at the club after work because he wanted to talk somewhere neutral. His voice had that practiced sadness men use when they have decided what version of themselves they want remembered. I said I would come, then called Graham, who had found his own matching gaps in Corinne's stories. He did not sound surprised when I said, I think tonight is the setup. The club was warm and quiet, all polished wood, folded towels, and people lowering their voices because money had taught them to. Miles Avery, the bar manager, stood near the private lounge with a tablet and a face that had stopped being friendly. Bennett had used employee access to reserve the room after hours, then listed the purpose as a member retention meeting. Miles looked at me and Graham and said, I need to know who authorized this booking. Bennett came out of the hallway first, adjusting his cuffs like manners could cover timing. Corinne followed in the navy coat, red hat tucked under one arm, her bare wrist turned toward her purse. For 1 second, nobody performed. Then Graham looked at his wife. I looked at my husband, and Miles asked the only question that mattered. Whose name is this room under tonight? No one shouted inside the club. And that made it worse for Bennett. Miles Avery did not need a scene when he had a booking record, a staff tablet, and Bennett's employee login attached to a room marked for member retention. Bennett tried to smile, but Miles had already stopped looking at him like a coworker. Corinne kept her coat folded over her wrist, as if covering the missing bracelet could cover the rest. The report began before we reached the parking lot. Miles documented the after-hours lounge reservation, the adjusted drink charges, and the fact that Bennett had brought Corinne into a restricted space under a business purpose that did not exist. I did not ask Miles to punish him, and Graham did not threaten anyone. We gave our names when asked, answered only what happened, and let the club handle its own rules. Bennett kept saying, "This is private," but private was no longer the same as invisible. By the end of the week, Bennett was placed on administrative leave while the club reviewed access logs and staff statements. He called me twice, then stopped when my attorney answered the third time. Corinne texted that she had never meant for me to find out that way, which told me she still thought the problem was timing. I saved the message because it matched the night at the club better than any apology could. At Corinne's restaurant, the damage moved quietly through people who valued discretion for a living. A regular client complained that Corinne had used private booking details and staff entrances to cover her personal life. No headline followed. No public announcement. Just fewer private dining assignments and a manager who stopped trusting her with the rooms people paid extra to keep confidential. Graham showed me the message from her supervisor, and his face did not change until he put the phone down. The divorce papers did not mention romance like it was a crime. My attorney focused on hotel charges, club fees, gifts, and trips Bennett had buried under words like hospitality and member care. Graham did the same with Corinne, calm enough to make every receipt feel louder. Bennett and Corinne wanted people to see two hearts trapped in the wrong marriages. But the records showed two adults using other people's trust to make their exit look clean. Bennett left the club by agreement, which sounded cleaner than it felt. The official language was transition, but everyone knew the membership director, who could not respect private boundaries, could not sell trust anymore. He found work later at a smaller gym outside the city, the kind of place where nobody cared who he used to be. Corinne lost private dining first, then the confidence of the clients who had paid her to keep their evenings separate from gossip. Graham sold the condo he had shared with Corinne and moved near the lake, close enough to walk when sleep came late. We stayed kind to each other, but we did not turn shared damage into a love story just because it would have made people comfortable. Once, after the papers were final, he texted, "I hope your house feels quiet in the good way." I looked around my little townhouse and realized it did. Corinne called months later from a number I did not know. Bennett had left when the consequences became too heavy, and she said his love looked different without club access, restaurant doors, and other people paying the emotional bill. I listened because the old version of me still remembered her birthday, her laugh, the way she used to know my coffee order. Then I told her, "I hope you get honest with yourself, but I cannot be the place you come back to." My life got smaller after that, then better. I kept my hotel job, made new friends slowly, and learned that consistency feels boring only when chaos has trained you to call it passion. The old notebook stayed in a drawer, not as a shrine, just as proof that I had listened when the evidence finally got louder than loyalty. If this story felt too familiar, stay with me. Tell me where you are watching from, and subscribe for more stories about finding peace after the people closest to you show who they really are.